Hello and welcome, episode 17. Glad to be here today. And Bill, let me tell you, last episode got 49 views. So
Really?
people like ghosts and demons, or maybe they, I don't know, but I was kind of hoping, usually you don't hope for like mean comments, but I wanted someone to comment. I'm like, are you guys watching this because you like it and you agree, or are you watching it thinking like, no, these people are dumb? But we'll never know, I guess. But yeah, I thought I'd start off with that. I'm like, good to know. Ghosts or
Yeah.
demons are a hit.
Yeah, and well, and see, that's like one of the downsides to, well, producing anything is out of the X amount of people, and I hate to say it, I don't want to put y'all in the doghouse, y'all, I don't even say that word. But like in general, and I'm guilty of this too, is we consume whatever it is, we see an image online, we see videos, podcasts, all these things. Um, the developer of whatever that is wants the feedback. They want the interaction. What do you like about this? What don't you like? What are your thoughts? Whatever that might be. And we don't give it.
Yeah, so I'm like, should we talk more about ghosts or demons? I don't think it's good to like.
Right.
We're not here to focus in on either of those, but
Right.
uh, it's weird. But I thought I'd kick it off with our question, and I'm limiting it to America's history because I had a feeling you'd be like Bible times. But if you could travel back in time in America's history, so you've got back to like the 1700s,
Yeah.
still a lot of good people, I'm sure. Where would you go? When? Why? Where would you take us if you were like in
Oh.
America's history? This is where I'd go back. And like you have the chance to come back, so it's not like you're stuck there. Because I feel like that makes a difference. So you're visiting for a day, no, maybe a couple weeks or months, or Do you want me to start with mine?
Yeah, because I got to figure that out.
Yeah, you're looking up all the famous preachers of those times. So
I'm thinking about it.
when
All,
was
yeah.
Jonathan Edwards
That was like
around?
a majority of those were like in England and Germany. Like America itself was practically brand new, if not non-existent. Well, yeah, like the Protestant Reformation. That's prior to America. So,
So I'll start with mine though. I would say the 1920s only because I really like the music, like the big band type music. I think it'd be interesting to be in that like prohibition area. One, because I don't drink, so I'd like to see like what would I have thought of that during the time. But also, I think it'd be fun to go to one of the speakeasies. Not just as much as like I wouldn't drink. It would just be fun to see like how are these run? How do they have those, the word of mouth to get people there without getting caught and in trouble? And I had thought even back in the 2020 time that it would be really cool because where I was at, all these small businesses had to close, but the smart ones put blackout paper over their windows. So like you didn't know, is anyone there? Probably they are. And whether it's just the owner or maybe they're doing customers, but I was like, man, I would want to create some sort of system like they did back then of like a word of mouth. Like, if you see this symbol, it means you can come to them and they will cut your hair and do your nails or they'll let you work out. All of these little things that I'm like, you guys, come on. You're not going to die from doing that. But that was my idea of like, if this happens again, which maybe we'll see this fall.
right.
Lots of people are saying something's coming, but I think I also in high school had read The Great Gatsby, and I've read it a couple times since then. And just that time period is like magical reading it at least. And I know there's like a ton of filth and, right after, guess what? The Great Depression. So we don't stay good for that long, but if I could just visit for a short amount of time, it'd be probably the 20s. I like what they wear too, the classy suits, all that.
Right. Yeah. And I was actually I like talked quite a bit about to this individual, a friend of mine, but we talked a little bit about that, and I think, and, I don't have much room to talk. I'm wearing a Star Wars T-shirt right now, but I just got off work before we got connected here. But I, uh, I think about that. It's like, man, how cool would it be if society brought that style back, where men wore the suits, women wore the dresses, or other. Actually, I think that's pretty much all they wore. But they had class. They really did, and it was really cool. I mean, that was the norm. I mean, that was their t-shirt, and jeans, for lack of a better example. That was
And you
normal
don't
for
ever
them.
forget your hat. And there were so many things like when a lady comes, you take the hat off, and when you're indoors,
Yeah,
you don't wear the hat, and you hold the hat, and you.
yeah, it's a really nice era. I would have to say, the only thing that came popping through my mind that I could think of would be the Boston Tea Party. Personally, I think we're about due for another Tea Party. But in general, like in the historical significance, I've always found the Boston Tea Party to be interesting. I don't personally can't give you a whole entire lecture on everything because it's been a while since I brushed up on it. I know the basics of it, but just the historical impact that it made, and what they would have been going through, and even dealing um, with Europe. So I mean, it's just kind of interesting to think about.
And kind of fun to be like, haha, we're dumping all your tea in the harbor.
Right? Not the Earl Grey. We
Right, it's
can't.
all we all want to go back to like fighting against the government. I wonder why, because we're not doing that these days. And like you're saying, we probably need to start. And if not, who's, judgment is coming on America.
Yeah,
Sad.
yeah. I think there is some sort of level in which America itself, like people talk so much about um, people needing to do something or had the corruption of politics, whatever the arguments are, but they don't they don't do what the founding fathers did. Um, and I don't have much of a rant on that. I just think it's really odd. There's a lot of talk, but no action within that. Anyways, that's all I have to say on it.
Yeah, for sure. And from there, let's talk about how do you get back on track if maybe you've had just a really hard week, maybe you've lost motivation, drive, something's going on, and you still have a small business
Yeah.
that you have to get back to. And that was something I bring this up because on Monday, which I'll talk about next question, what have you been working on? I went and drove like a road trip to get this masterclass filmed, and it was like crazy. I don't, it's one of those like it was a blur. People were like, "How did it go?" I'm like, "Good, I think." I don't know. And then I went to that church group. I was like sitting through this guy's really long speech or sermon, I guess. I mentioned in Bill's, and he was just reading all these pages. I'm like, "Buddy, this is not a good day. Maybe I should have stayed home," because I was just so impatient. And then Tuesday, I was just exhausted. Like I went to the gym. Like I'm doing a light swim, and then I'm sitting in the steam room and hot tub. Like I'm tired. I'm like, but at the same time, I have to jump back in because, as you know too, than anyone who has a small business, if you're taking time to rest or maybe you're just not working on your business, guess what? Nothing happens. Nothing
Right.
gets done. At least yet at the stages we're in. But so I thought it would be fun to talk about. But what have you seen in yourself of like maybe if you share a time when you were like within that and then how did you get yourself back or just anything around that? Because I think that's something, especially as people get started in a business, is like it's exciting and it's easy to work when something's exciting or you're succeeding. It's harder though when you've gone through kind of what I mentioned.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if there's ever been a whole, getting distracted and needing to get back on track. For me, because what I do in the development, the writing, planning, research, whatever I'm doing related to it, um, I do enjoy doing. So, I have mentioned it can be a burnout sometimes, but I mean, as far as getting distracted from it, just general distractions people have, I have those, but I mean, for the most part, I'm always doing something related to it. The most I can really say related to that would be is that there's sometimes a burnout where I don't do anything for like a week. Um, I don't do any writing, any sort of development planning. Like I don't even touch it. I just I'm either reading or watching TV or playing a game or something just to kind of relax. Be like, okay, I've spent the past 3 months working on this or whatever it is. I'm exaggerating a number here, but spent all this time. Let's take that break, and then usually within after that week or so, it's like, okay, well, I feel as if I've accomplished nothing this past week. Like it's weird. It really is weird
That's the
because
kick to get you going. You're like,
yeah,
"Oh."
because like I purposely take a break so that way I can just refresh, and then like after whatever amount of period of time, usually about a week or so, then I'm kicking myself in the butt. Like it's like, dude, you need to do something. You need to get back on track. You need to get to work. So um, if I was my own boss, I'd probably be fired.
Yeah. No, I think that's good because I would say probably the same thing. Like sometimes you need to walk away and take a break. If, like, even if you're working, because I know some people will get this, like, you're working, but you're not really getting anything done, but
Yeah.
it still feels like you're working, and technically you are. But then it's like if you just took a day off or a couple of days off where you could actually refresh and get, like, replenished, then maybe you can get some of that excitement back and drive and motivation. Be like, okay, let's
Yeah.
get to it, either because you really want to, or like you mentioned, you're like, oh man, I've not done anything. We need to get going. Let's jump
Yeah.
back into it.
Well, there's like sometime like last year when I went down to I took a vacation down at the beach for like probably a good 2 or 3 months. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I kept like, okay, do I just want to take my books so that I can read, or do I want to take my laptop so that I can write? And so I got a hold of a couple different people trying to get their opinion. One individual like means a lot to me, their opinion and so on. And they basically says like, hey, Bill, dude, just relax. Don't even think about taking your computer. Just leave it behind and just take your books, enjoy your time, catch up on your reading, do that. It's like, okay, I don't like that answer, but I know why. So, um, yeah, that's pretty much my little rant right there.
Yeah, and to close out, I would also say like it's good to know if you're at that point, because then I knew Tuesday when I woke up and like started the day, I'm like, oh, this is not going to be a productive day. So, okay, that's fine. Like readjust my expectations for most of this week. Like now I'm getting good stuff done, so it was just like for me I think realizing like you went through a lot,
Right.
Michael, which I'm like younger me I think could have held like had more maybe mental capacity to like jump from that to that to that to that. But it also is hard when you are pushing your own business forward, because you're like, there's so many ways I could go with what I want to work on. So it's kind of balancing of like we had talked about like what is gonna make money for the business,
Right.
start there, and then make lists of things you can get done that maybe if you know like you're not feeling very productive or you're more tired, then maybe don't hit like the coursework where you're writing and using a lot of mental capacity, but do
Yeah.
something like making your social media posts for the next couple weeks, because that is maybe more visual and creative. So
Right.
I would say that has been helpful for me.
Yeah, that's how I am too. Is because like even when if I'm not working on it, I'm working on something like similar to that. I mean, I'm not making all sorts of posts or anything, but writing, planning, researching something. And it's really weird to even think about. I mean, as it being a means of relaxing. I don't even know how to comprehend that. It's like, what do you like to do to relax? Work.
That's what I say about going to the gym. I was like, I mostly do it to get out of the house and to like that's my fun. And I'm like, then when I'm at the gym, I'm like, is this really fun, Michael? I'm like, it's debatable. Like as you're in pain lifting weights, I'm like, why do people do this? Like,
Right.
I've I ask people now, I'm like, do you like the pain? Like, do you like that as you're lifting weights? Because I'm just like, this hurts. Why do people do this? And most people are like, yeah, I do. I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not that type of person. Because I'm just in pain.
it's, it's like, why am I doing this? I want to go home.
I look around and I'm just like, oh, but these people do. They do it.
Yeah.
But what did you work on this past week? I know we had, so in our small business community, we have like a monthly meetup, and I had posted like, it's next week,
Yeah.
the end of the month. And Bill, you were like, oh man, it's flown by. Like, how are we almost there? But I know you had a busy week. What did you do?
Well, I just really ground through some more of the course that I'm working on. I mean, it's making excellent progress because like what I was working on this week um, is there is in the workbook that I'm using to develop the course. It's got a bunch of exercises, lab reports, and so on. But there's a section that they have called study questions, and what I'm using those for is just I pulled those out and I'm putting them in I should say a student handbook or a course handbook is what we would probably call it. Maybe there's a better word there, but particularly for the particular this course. And I'm putting all the stuff that is optional work or ungraded work. I'm putting that in here, and that's what some of these study questions are. There's a lot of discussion questions, and they're really fun. It's like, man, I want to find some way to have this be a means of engagement, because if this is a course being taught in house, I'd want to take a session to just go over these study questions and encourage this dialogue and deeper thinking. But anyway, so I just spent time going through that workbook and typing them out on the workbook that I'm putting together. Made excellent progress. I don't even remember when I started it. I would say maybe Sunday. Yeah, it was Sunday because Saturday I was busy with my nephews. So I would say probably Sunday is when I started it, and I'm already almost done with the study questions for chapter 7 out of a total of 12. So I think it'll probably be very close. That particular phase of the course development, I think, will be really close to being done by this weekend. 3-day weekend, so it could be.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. And are you putting that in like a Google document to start and then transferring that over to your learning platform, or are you like typing it into the platform and then it's
Yeah.
done? 'Cause
Well,
I think that's
originally I was
interesting to
thinking
know.
about typing it into the platform because it does have a feature where I can do that. But I was like, well, I'm also going to need this for teaching the class in house. So I opted into just putting it all on a Google Doc, and then once it's finished, have it be a PDF. So that
Mhm.
way, okay, it's ready to print for in house or just upload and download, obviously, for the student as they take the course. So, yeah, that's the direction it's going to go. And I think probably for the most part, most of the documents that I create will be done that way, just so that it's easier access for whichever direction that it's needed.
Yeah, it makes sense if you can have it in as many formats as possible. Like
Yeah,
I can send it, I can print it, I can do this, I can do that.
right. All I got to do is work on organization. So,
Yeah, I found too, because I'm gonna need to create an activity like homework guide, and I'm
hmm
gonna do it in Canva. And I'm like, when I had done like printout sheets for my Start Little book, I added color and all this, and then I went to print them out. And I'm like, I'm not gonna waste this much color.
right?
So I went through and made new versions where I took color out of like I did the outline instead of full black. So I'm like, oh, save on your black. Took out the yellow banners. So I'm like torn between like I want to do a really fun, like on brand with this masterclass, but I'm like, Michael, no one's gonna print out full color sheets.
Right. And I was thinking that same thing when I did the mentorship workbook. I printed
With the blue, the black
yeah,
cover.
yeah, I mean I just have a black and white printer, but the pages themselves on the PDF is just, very colorful, which it does look nice on a computer,
Yeah.
but it doesn't look nice when you actually have to print it out. Next thing you know, your ink is low.
So you need like a read only, which I was like I could probably do that too. Like if you're just gonna do it on your iPad and tablet, then or computer, then do this version. But if you're gonna print it out, because some people are very much like, and I suggest that they take notes of their own, not even for the activity guide yet,
Yeah.
because that's how like I'm like if you want to get the most out of this, that's what you should do.
Oh yeah.
And so some people though are like, I want to print everything. I'm like, cool. I need to make sure it's accommodating for them, but then also it needs to look nice too.
Right.
But
Yeah.
for myself, I mentioned it already on Monday. So yeah, I think I mentioned last time it was coming together. Maybe I don't know if I knew if I was filming on Monday, but it all kind of happened last minute. I'm like, we have a space available. Can you do it Monday? I'm like, technically I can, but I thought I'd have many more days
Yeah.
to like prep everything. So that whole weekend was like going through the content, writing notes of like, here's what you're gonna say, and then make a new note in just on my laptop. And then I figured I was like, I'll make an outline, give it to them to help with the editing. Like the welcome is 2 sections because I can only remember this much, and then I'm gonna open the laptop, read it, close it. All right, guys, ba-da-da-da-da. And so it turned out I could have the laptop open and in front of me. So I was like, I did all this thinking, and they're like, it looks more natural to have it open. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. But then it was lower, so then I was like, I can't really read it. So I did need to know most of it. But as I mentioned, it was kind of a blur. I think, like, I'll still stick with, like, it went well. But I think what I noticed was when we're talking, even now, like, I can see myself, I can see my lighting. So I'm used to seeing myself. And then there like that the camera was further away, there was two, so they'll have two different angles. And then when there's people in the room, I expect them to be an audience, I think, just because I performed. And so they are not the audience, the two guys that were there with the business, but sometimes they nod like, yeah, I agree with you saying. I'm like, good, I'm doing a good job. And then other times, just waiting for me to finish. So then I'm like, I'm not doing good. So it's like a war inside of like,
Right.
I finished, I'm like, I did bad. But then I also felt like it was kind of a spiritual attack within that too, of like, I was so looking forward to this, it all should have gone well, and then like, no, Michael, you suck. And I'm like, okay, I know it's not, don't listen to that voice because it will come out good. But that was just like, I think, which also led to being just like, it was too crazy, tired, all of that. 5 hours
Yeah.
of driving in one day is blah, gross.
Well, and I think that's like that's something we all deal with too. Is whatever it is that we're creating, it's the creator's critique. It's like, okay, I've completed this, or I know what I want to say. It could have been better.
Yeah.
And we're always going to have that. It sucks, it really does. But and that's what
Especially
I've,
paying money for it. I was like, we're not going to
right,
go back and fix this, and I don't ever
right.
want to touch it again.
And that's why I think, well, like what I mentioned in the beginning of this is that it's very beneficial. I didn't mention it's beneficial, but why developers like the feedback is so that they can know, is like, okay, what was good, what was bad, what needs changed, what needs enhanced, whatever else you want to say there.
Which is good because I already have a list of what I would change next time. So I'm like, I've got my own list of like,
Right.
ooh. And a part of it too, I think, like I forget when you're doing something new. So like this is a new setup. I just met these people. Like they were very friendly. Like experience was great. I would use them again. So nothing went wrong. But like I was like, oh, you have to keep that in effect. Like take that into account too. Of like, you just drove for this many hours. You weren't completely prepared. Like I was enough to do it and do a good job, but it was like all of these things that added up to like fish out of water type of thing. I'm like,
Right.
oh, okay, so it's okay, Michael.
Well, and do you get a chance to, once they put it together, do you get a chance to revise it or like a redo or something?
They said there's like a system where they'll put it in and then I can make comments and if anything needs to be changed,
Okay.
then we can go through there. But I think overall, yeah, it was fine. I think I wanted to add more personal stories, but I was trying so hard to remember what was coming next in my mind. And usually when I podcast or hear, I can think, like I can see words of like what's coming up next while I'm talking, which sounds insane, but they're empty. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to say next. I'm like, nothing's in my mind. But what are you working on in the next week or what's coming up? So you mentioned you are finishing that one, the study guide questions, right?
Yeah.
So what's
Yeah.
the next part of the course that's
Off of memory, I've got the quizzes done. I think the only thing after these study questions, there's two things. Is one, to put the lab reports up, which the workbook itself provides a lot. I'll have to send you a picture show you what I mean, but it's quite a few lab reports per chapter. And I'm thinking about just having maybe one or two, because I don't want the student to be overwhelmed. Or maybe put them all up so that way they have the options. Like, okay, do one, or I don't know. I haven't decided, but yeah. Anyways, lab reports per chapter, and then I got to put the slides together per chapter, and then it's done.
Whoa, that's
Yeah.
exciting.
So if everything goes as quick as it has been, um, what are we in? We're almost in June. I would say probably pretty close to the end of June is when it'll all be taken care of. And then recording, I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know if that's going to be done by then or not. But anyways, we're almost done. That's the plus side.
Nice. And yeah, I think that is tricky, making sure, like, on top of everything else you're doing, but, like, not overwhelming the person. Because on one end, people these days are wimpy. I'm like,
Yeah.
in mine, in the video, like, emphasizing in the presentation, like, to get the most out of this, like, you actually need to watch the video. You need to go through, like I said, watch the video first, take a day, like, not asking more. Then come back to the video with the presentation, pause it as I say, do the activity guide, but you actually have to do the homework. You
Yeah.
need to make the post, you need to engage, and like I'm tying it into this like kind of like, haha, you need to engage in my community because you're gonna make a community in this, and you're gonna see it's hard. So like a lot of it now is like kind of naturally, but I'm saying I specifically built it that way
Right.
to see like starting a small business or learning what you're doing, like it's fun, it can be enjoyable, but you have to put the work in there. And so I think that's the hard part of finding, like you will find the right people eventually in your small business, but it's like I hope you guys know, like mine the slides is like 94 and I'm like it's easy to read and fun, but like you got to be ready to do it if you're serious like about starting a business or learning hermeneutics.
Yeah, and I mean, that's really where I think we all fail, because I mean there's so many different things that I've been wanting to do and I do and don't do and all that other stuff.
Do.
Dude, shut up.
Sorry.
I knew you were gonna say that. Yeah, doo-doo. Um, uh, uh,
Do you
yeah.
remember what you were saying?
Nope.
Yeah, okay, I just finished that with what I'm doing. So what I did start doing on, I think it was Tuesday. I started it Tuesday night. I was gonna come out with a landing page, and first I was gonna say, like, I found an example of someone else's sale page, and I was kind of copying it in the system I have, and then I was like, I'm not really liking this. Like, there's so much fun to make things, but then when you realize it doesn't look like commercial sites out there, which
Yeah.
I don't think you should have to only tie yourself to that, but I'm like, for like the readable, like easy on the eyes, what people are used to, I'm like, it needs to look like like everything else somewhat. So then I was just gonna have like give your email to get notified when it comes out, and like you'll get a reward, percentage off, to I remembered what my mentor was saying of like, just put the option for them to give you your money now for a pre-launch. So I'm having a pre-launch sale, so what I'm calling it, and I'll send it to you. Well, actually, I'll have it in the description, so it's not fully ready. But by the time this comes out and people are watching it, it will be ready.
Awesome.
But kind of copying a template that was I'm using card.co. So using that and then figuring out like, how do I make this work? Adding a Stripe button so they can purchase it. It'll send them back to the website, and then I'll say, here you go, add in your email, I'll send it to you. Well, I'm going to send them an email right then, but then once it comes out, and I'm just saying June. So I'm like,
Right.
I don't know when,
Just
but
pick a number.
sometime in June it's coming out. But it's really fun to make, but I think the tricky thing is knowing, will it work? I'm not expecting a lot of people really to, I'm trying to keep the expectations reasonable because I want to charge 197 regularly. So this is 147, so you get $50 off. And I'm like, this is just crazy, Michael. Like, if people, I was like, I'll take the 150. Like, I'll take anything really. And I think that's, as small business owners, that's how we are. Like just support. And it's very weird though, because that number sounds high, but then I think it balances nicely. And as we've talked about before, like balancing value, like there is enough value to pay this amount of money, but then on the sales page you have to show that. So that's what I'm gonna have to be figuring out of like, does this work? I'm gonna post it in the community and be like, hey guys, does this make sense? Let me know like what your thoughts are, because I think I was telling my mom that eventually I'm just gonna hire this out. Like the film company, they said they do that kind of stuff, content production and all of that. I'm like, I'd gladly spend $500 for you to make a page, like
Right.
if I knew it would sell my product. But then my business is here to teach people how to have their own business. So I'm like, I first need to learn how to have a successful landing page to sell a product or class. Then once I learn it, I'll hire it out. Like for the podcast, I learned how to edit. I got busy enough where I don't have time to edit. I'll hire someone else. But
Right.
technically, I can still edit. So it's just kind of this weird, like, I don't want to learn, but I need to learn. And if I can learn, then if I can make, a couple purchases a week of this, I'm like, wow.
Yeah. Well, and even so, like learning these things, even if it's something that you don't end up managing, that still helps you to get an understanding of what the individual that you hire to fill that role has to go through, and what
And
they've got to
train them
figure
too,
out.
maybe.
Yeah, and train them. So, I mean, it's not like, is it? Let's say for video editing, for an example, it's like, okay, well, here, get this done in an hour, kind of thing. When in reality, because you've had that experience, it takes a couple hours or maybe even a day or two, depending on what it is that you're doing. So,
Yeah. With this one, I was like, oh, I feel so bad now. Like, I did my part of like talking. And I'm like, no, you have to sit through like an hour and a half of, a lot of it, they just kept the cameras rolling. So they'll just go through and piece it together. I'm like, well, that's what you do. So I'm not going to feel bad, but I'm glad I don't have to do it because it sounds terrible. But I'm also excited because they get to use their own creativity now. Because I'm kind of like, do whatever you want with it. Like I told you, I want one long consistent with like effects to show like each section. But then I give them my logos, the title, certain things. So I think that's what's cool when you can work with other people, is like I can trust that they're going to do something great with it. And I saw some behind the scene photos, which will be on the site. and I look good. So I'm like, oh, that's a relief. Like, you're just such a small thing.
It's
But I
very
was
humble
like,
of you to say.
I know. But I knew like if I looked bad, I would just cringe the whole. I would just be ashamed of it. But so I was like, that's something I didn't know, but I saw a photo, so I'm like, I will look good. The editing will be good. The content will be there. Maybe not as in depth as I would have liked, but that's what the presentation's for. So.
Right.
But anything to leave us with, Bill?
Make sure you drink plenty of water.
Yeah.
That's what I
He was
have.
saying on his podcast how it's getting hot. He's got a cooler.
Yep.
Which maybe you'll have to listen to his because he talks all about that.
About the cool. I'm so proud of it. I really am. I'll have to find it. Then find it online or something to show you because
We are affiliate linking this cooler for everyone.
It's awesome. So
but we started live streaming over at Bill's business.
Yeah.
Do you want to say just intro that real quick?
Yeah, we can go into more into that next week. But
Next week.
yeah, we had
actually worked this time.
Yeah, we had a wonderful time with it last week. That's a lot of sarcastic smile there.
Yeah, I think we did mention that too, because that was the question. How was StreamYard?
Yeah, don't mention that.
Failed.
But yeah, we had fun with it today. It streamed just fine as far as we could tell. The only problem I did notice is because I think I might need to do something. Anyways, I flipped the stream, or how I was viewing it on my computer. Like right now I'm viewing it as if I'm looking at your camera thing, whatever. But
you're looking off the screen.
Yeah, on the stream I'm looking the complete other way. I was like, oh yeah, that's great. So
I wonder if there's like a mirror image,
Well, and that's what I did. I did. I
you.
flipped it the last time we tried it. I flipped it, and I was like, okay,
but this time you did.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know what the deal was, but maybe I'll just have to have you be on flip who's on which side.
Just add like a little mirror emoji.
Right.
Division of Bill flashes across.
Put a little text and says I'm supposed to be over here.
Yeah, I think it's great. It was fun to see that it worked, and it makes me think too. I'm like, ooh, this is a fun. Like I originally didn't like having to be present the whole video. Like these shorter ones are easier, but then I was like, it's fun. And when I'm watching it back, pretending I'm a customer, I'm like, it is kind of fun to see the people talking.
Yeah.
So, I think you're onto something there.
Yeah, and it's kind of more. I mean, we already do it anyways, but I mean, it's kind of it gives a kind of a whole casual, realistic, maybe.
You just see me wiping my nose.
Yeah.
And I went to the restroom after that. Between this, I don't ever eat healthy bread. It's just all the seeds in my teeth, and I'm like, I hope the camera's far enough away because it's like right in some of the main teeth.
Those are like the grain ones, like 12 grain. I love that kind.
It's
I like the crunchy.
Like Killer Dave's, one of those,
It's
but it's got a ton
thing.
of seeds all over it, and I'm like, why do we eat this? It just destroys any content creator. But we'll leave it here at that. Check out the description for how you can get connected with us. Check out that pre-launch sale that I mentioned. $50 off. Oh, I just hit my... I need to never use my right hand because it's kind of common. I've done that a couple times. $50 off.
Right as the window breaks.
Yeah. Check out the live stream. Yeah. Just connect and support us, and we'll be back again next week. See you guys later.